How you doing? My name's Eric. I'm a Mullen. Welcome back to Talking with Famous People. I've had a busy day, busy stuff going on. At the moment, I've got the baseball game on in the background here. And the Athletics are already going in the top of the second inning. We are already trailing by a run. So, that's life as an A's fan, I guess. Uh, I still have high hopes for the season. We're off to a rough start. But, nice job, Rook. Way to lace that single into center field. Worker's bat is starting to wake up a bit. That's good. So I went to my first day at work today. I mean, sort of yesterday was my first day going in, but then they rescheduled me for today. So uh, I did the stocking job today. Much of it, I was being trained, so this guy was helping me with it. But I started getting the hang of it a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of time for me to really develop a feel for the job, obviously, because to do it quickly and efficiently, you gotta, you know, um, you gotta know where everything is that goes where and all that stuff. So I took a bunch of notes today, and it's a pretty physical job. That's fine. I don't mind that at all. But my body is gonna have to get used to it a little bit. Not so much the lifting. There's not very much heavy stuff to lift at all, but there is some squatting down to like put things on lower shelves and stuff. It's gonna take a little getting used to. I think I'm gonna make some Marconi and cheese. What's that you say? It's called macaroni and cheese? First I've heard of it. Alright, I'm gonna throw away Rachel's leftovers now. And we'll put these bowls in the sink. Put this crap in there. Put this bowl in the sink. Okay. Now we could proceed to the macaroni and cheese prep, but I think we'll go make sure the baseball game's doing okay. I actually want to get a little bit of salt in my mouth too, because I don't know if people are aware of this at all, but when you're dehydrated, yes, you need to drink water, but if you're feeling like crampy, dehydrated, or whatever, you're as likely to need salt as anything else. So, a little salt, a little water will help. Sounds like the mailman's here or some delivery person. So, all right, we're going to go outside. We're going to smoke a cigarette and watch a little bit of this baseball game. Baseball game, I mean. All right. So we'll go outside and see see what came in the mail. Wow, look what I got here, everybody. It's a box to Eric from WN. You may or may not be able to identify who that is based on those initials. Well, short answer, Winston's mom. Long answer, Winston's mom. That's pretty exciting. Pretty chilly out here today. Hi, Putty Cat. When you drove home from work, did you listen to Working Man by Rush? No. Matters of geese splatters? No, no geese splatters. Awesome Chains said man in the box. Alright, Athletics all of a sudden have a run. How did that happen? I'll look away for a second and let's tie it up. You spent half of yesterday getting pissed at voices. Why are cigarettes so expensive? People deem them a vice, and so they try to discourage people doing that. What happened last night, Gyalt? Big party? Well, it sounds as though Gyalt may be having some mental health issues at the moment. Brr. It has gotten shockingly cold. It was quite warm, not but a couple of days ago, and it was super cold outside. I can tell you I worked up quite a sweat at work today. But I'm going back tomorrow to do it again. Today I had one Adderall in me. That probably made things a little bit easier than it would otherwise be. Tomorrow I'm not going to have any Adderall in me, but that's fine. I will tough it out, get presumably faster than I was yesterday. Gonna be sore tomorrow? Yeah, I'm gonna be sore tomorrow and also back at work tomorrow. So, today I did it with this other guy. Tomorrow I'm also supposed to do it with another guy, but presumably after they've walked me through or helped me with it a couple times, and I'll be on my own doing it. It's not anything too complicated. It's just gonna require increased familiarity on my part to get faster at it. Feels very good to be gainfully employed again. Have a few hours of my day occupied. Apparently, the whole set of tasks that is my task takes about 3 hours when you get quick at it. So, it's the sort of job that I wanted, the sort of job that I should be quite comfortable doing for a while. Have you ever applied somewhere where nobody calls off and a manager was I'll help you when you need it, and then they're never there, and you pretty much do the whole shift by yourself. I have. Have you ever worked somewhere? Oh yeah, okay, I read it. Is that other guy a lot younger? So that makes it harder. He is a lot younger, but that doesn't make it harder in any way. He actually has some physical problems from falling off of a ladder some couple years ago or something, broke a bunch of bones. And so he's not supposed to do so much lifting, but yeah, it's a great place to work. I can tell already. Everybody there is super cool, and you know, it's exactly what I want. It's exactly the sort of thing I want. You know, maybe eventually the boss said that he might eventually train me to do deli and cashier as well. But for now, they need help with this, and that's what I'm happy to be doing. How will they measure my productivity? Well, I mean, I think eventually it'll get measured in terms of how long it takes me to do the whole thing. According to the guy I was working with today, once I get down, it should take about 3 hours. Sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little less, depending on how much stock needs to be restocked. And there are other tasks involved too, like dealing with the gas pumps, checking the security tape on those, and other things like refilling the ice things outside and refilling the ice in the drink machines inside, taking the trash out, you know, things like that. And I'm sure I will make a few mistakes along the way, but I will do my best to minimum character interaction would be your gig. Did I say, honey, I'm home when I got home? No, I didn't. I just came in and Rachel said, hi, Eric. I said, hi. So regarding the question about have I ever worked in that capacity? No, I never had a job like that where that happened to me, but um, you know, they're making sure I know what I'm doing before I start taking on the responsibility for it. And yeah, I'm a little bit, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a little bit sore really, but I was a little dehydrated when I got home. I had a little bit of cramps. All right, let's make some mac and cheese. We're gonna make some mac and cheese, and we're gonna feel truly alive for the first time, ever, without stopping. Why is this thing here blue? Boy, I have no idea if I think that's blue. Alright, well that's fine. So we get 6 cups of water is the first ingredient in making macaroni and cheese if you've never made it before. I show media. So, I need to move that stool. Even in the rain. It's not really raining right now, but it sprinkled a little bit today. Alright, so here's my 6 cups of water. And we'll put this over here on the stove to boil. Weird film on it, like maybe that thing was very clean. Gonna put the water in like this. That's about 6 cups of water. That looks better. Okay. So we'll turn that on over here. The pot with the water in it is now on the fire. And we'll get out the ingredients we're going to need. That includes this box of macaroni and cheese. And it will include some butter. A half a stick to be precise. Oh, we need more butter. We are down to the dregs of butter. Got this stick plus a little other piece, and that's it. So, obs, I'm gonna have to go to the store soon. I could do it after work tomorrow, maybe. Rachel might want to go with me. Alright. We've got the butter there now. I should have washed my hands before doing that, but it's fine. So, I scheduled a premiere for a typing session for tomorrow, and it's an unusual one in that I actually made an intro and an outro to it because I think I got the guy wrong. And as I was thinking about it after the fact, I was like, actually I think he's this type. So I made a little intro outro explaining that. In the intro he's explaining I think I got it wrong, and then in the outro explaining why, or what I thought he was instead. It was, it wasn't very long after I got off the session with him that I was like, you know what, I think I got that guy wrong. I won't go into any more detail about it. Wow, athletics are up 3-1. I'm not even sure how that happened, but sounds good. Oh, let me go back a little bit and see what happened here. Okay, right. Lawrence Butler. How do we get the first run? 2 out, nobody on top of the second. But it looks like we're going to get some 2 out action here. First, we've got who up to the plate?
On the defensive side of the baseball as well.
Max Muncy. Is he going to get another home run here? I think so. I will bring up onto the screen here the live stream so I can see the chat. All right. Okay, now I should be able to see this. Let's see. Did you get an employee discount? No. Hi, Carlos Casanova. Okay. So Ibanez got one of those runs across. Lawrence Butler walked. And then, who's that to bat? Denzel Clark? Yeah, Denzel Clark is up to bat. Let's see here. My motto is I'm not a failure, I'm a pioneer in the field of discovering what doesn't work. Clark walks, that's good. I'm currently skimming through it here and there. Otherwise, I might watch and be unpleasantly surprised. Oh, yeah, with that typing session? Yeah. Who hit that? Oh, Jacob Wilson. Good job. Okay. Hey, Steve Billings. I understand why most of the book is just examples, is to train your intuition to recognize types. Except that's not a good way to recognize types. Because I just started live streaming. I'm settling into this baseball game. I'm going to have a chill evening here. Why is Trump so ridiculously stupid? Combination of multiple factors, I'd imagine. This is you when you get home? Nah, I'm not. I'm not at all in the mood for that tonight. That's sad. That's a sad comic show media. Okay, well, the Athletics are up 3-1 now in this game, thanks to Jacob Wilson's 2-run scoring double, and Ibanez got the other RBI. Let's see. I got this playing. Okay. There, now it's stopped. Did they make you do a drug and background test for pre-employment? No. I just filled out tax paper and signed the thing, like some basic rules, like, you know, dress conservatively is what it says, but it's like everybody just wears jeans and whatever there, and things like I'm on a 90-day probationary period, as every new hire is, and yeah, like, you know, basic things like if you don't show up for work when you are supposed to, like you just blow it out or whatever, you're gonna lose your job, stuff like that. Obvious stuff. Obvious stuff. Rachel, my darling. Just very normal stuff. Yeah. Very normal stuff. Not quite boiling all the way yet, but almost. So let's get a wooden spoon out of here. I wonder if Rachel emptied the dishwasher. Wow, look at that. She did empty the dishwasher. I started it before I left this morning. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, I'll put this in. Obviously, remember to take out the cheese packet before you pour the macaroni in. Because you're not going to put the cheese packet in until the very end. And you don't want your pasta to get all huddled together. So you gotta do a little stirring here at the beginning. Put that on for a second, get it a little hotter. Okay, now it's going pretty good. Should be able to walk away from this for a little bit at this point. What sauce? You hope it's rotini? You have seen too many versions of different types of definition for the same cardinal functions. Well, that's an understandable thing for anybody to be confused by. It's everybody but me doing the world a disservice. And what's of note is that other people will not tell you that. Other people will not say everybody else but me is right, is wrong. That I'm the only one who's right. No, other people won't tell you that. They'll say, well, they have different systems or other shitty things like that. So. Rachel still has a cute haircut. I remember that bong. I guess I broke it at some point. Guess I did. Oh, it's called a hair cute, huh? It's like a meat cute, but for your hair. What are those stuffed ones called? Raviolis? Rachel's a fan of raviolis. But tonight, we're having something a little more straightforward than that. Macaroni and cheese. One of the big advantages of macaroni and cheese, of course, it's a one-pot dish. Really doesn't require a lot of mess making to successfully cook macaroni and cheese. Alright, we got 4 minutes left on the pasta part. Manicottis are good. Yeah. You know, the thing is, when you get your kinds of Italian cheese that are like lasagna kind of cheeses, I think one of them's called, what's it called? Starts with an R, maybe? Ricotta. Ricotta, yeah. There we go. You got it too. Ricotta cheese, that stuff's good. That's a good kind of cheese. Nobody's gonna turn their nose up at ricotta. There's another one that's like ricotta that has a different name. I think you might put both of them in lasagna. Pesto's good. What type of picks? Oh, picks he shared the links to. You know, one of them was a sad cartoon about him feeling alone. The other one was a picture of me and Rachel from some years back. Ricotta cheese is in ravioli and manicotti. There is seasoning added. Isn't there another kind of cheese that's like ricotta? Maybe it starts with an M? I can't think of what it is. I could Google it though. Alright, we still got 2 minutes left. I guess I might as well take this opportunity to go move this tool in out of the rain. See what else we have lying around here that shouldn't be in the rain. And it is starting to rain a bit. That's for sure. Okay, I'm going to get this orange cord. Put this over here underneath the cover. Alright. That'll do for now. That's probably just about done. And we've got 40 seconds left. What the heck? Aren't you going to put any protein in there? Not right now. I just have mac and cheese as my first course, and then if I'm still hungry, then later maybe I'll barbecue up a protein of some kind, or otherwise cook up a protein. McDonald's is like the most natural food out there. It's like eating mildly pleasant cardboard. McDonald's is delicious. I can't understand why anybody would critique McDonald's. So we're going to use this to strain our pasta. That's why they call me the master of mac and cheese. You see, I put this steaming tub on top, and I can use it as a strainer. Okay. Pull this out. Oops. That's unfortunate. I need to remember to do that. When I pull that out to knock off the macaroni from the bottom of it. Alright. Now we're going to put in our butter. I'm going to stir that around. We always do the butter first because it takes a while to melt. And obviously it melts better when it hasn't been cooled down by the milk yet. Also helps to cut it into smaller pieces. Okay, that's melted pretty good. Put that powder in. Stir that up. Okay. And now we'll put the last ingredient in. 1/4 cup of milk that I'm spilling all over the place. Alright. Well, obviously that milk was a little overflowing, so not a shock that happened. Put this 1/4 cup back in there after I've rinsed it out, and we're going to stir this all up nice and thoroughly. Spread all of the orangeness around. You don't want clumps of orange powder anywhere. Alright. Now the last stage here is going to be to add some pepper. Alright. It's hard to over pepper mac and cheese. Alright. And we've got dinner number 1. I'm sure I will eat something else later as well, but for now this will do. And if Rachel is still on stream and listening, if she wants some mac and cheese, it's ready. What?
I heard you loud and clear, boss.
Oh, cool.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for over peppering the mac and cheese I was hoping you would.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want ketchup?
No, I don't think so. I might come get it after if I just change my mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the Athletics are now up 4-1. So we got another run somehow. Where is the mouse? There. Our Burger King used to have 10 chicken nuggets per dollar a long, long time ago. Yeah, that would be a long time ago. Never seen any small chains for wings. I mean, we have fire wings, but they're big enough to cover half of California's wing needs. I mean, I don't understand the appeal of chicken wings at all. They're almost all bone.
They're pretty difficult to eat too, and then you get really sloppy.
Mm-hmm. But I guess boneless wings are fun.
Boneless wings are easy, yeah.
Hi, Carlos Paella. Not a whole hell of a lot. Watching the baseball game. The Athletics are actually winning today, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
The offense is looking lively. I don't live near here, but the reviews for the Boston Airport Jimmy John's are so weird. Trigger warning, scary. Well, if I were going to get chicken wings, I wouldn't get chicken wings. I would get chicken tenders.
Yeah.
Or chicken nuggets. Ideally, the wings should be half submerged in a lake of fire sauce, huh? Sounds a little too spicy for my taste. I don't know who Christy Noam is,
Neither.
let alone her husband. One review was saying the workers were 9 feet tall. Hmm. Well, I know it's a national fast food chain, but Raising Cane's is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Nashville style hot chicken. Is that what they have at Raising Cane's? JVL's not a Raising Cane's fan. Fine. Raising Cane's be giving me skinny tenders.
Mm.
You know, my daughter's a real saucer. She pioneered the expression hashtag no dry bites.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so much of a saucer myself. What about the third animal in the trifecta? Gelt pigs.
Oh my god. I was gonna ask you if you wanted to go to Boot Jack, but you just came from there.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about earlier in the stream when I was like, oh, we need butter. Maybe I'll go into the town to the market after work tomorrow. But then I thought, well, maybe Rachel wants to go with me to the market, though. In which case, I'll have to come back and then go back out again. But that's okay if that's how it plays out.
Were you thinking about going tonight?
No, I was thinking about going. I the first thing I thought was, oh, I could go get butter and a couple other things at the market tomorrow after work before I come home. But then I thought, well, maybe Rachel wants to go into
Oh.
town with me. You know.
I don't have to. You don't have to come back home. That's fine.
Now you're debating whether you want wings
Um.
or tenders for tonight, huh? Are we having ham for Easter? I mean, I don't really think we are celebrating Easter.
I kind of wanted to have um the pierogies.
Pierogies?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even quite sure what pierogies are.
They're like dumplings stuffed with potato.
Okay. Is that an Easter thing?
Mm. Well, I celebrate. We like used to celebrate with kielbasa, pierogies, and
Oh, right, the kielbasa thing. For some reason, I
yeah,
was thinking that was St. Patrick's Day. But no, that's Easter. All right, well, we do have smoked sausage. We could try to get pierogies. We could get some, what, like sauerkraut or something too? Does that
yeah,
go with that?
yeah. We have sour cream. Well, we could get more sour cream too.
Yeah.
Yeah, pierogies do require sour cream. I agree.
I don't eat much pork. Favorite kind of pork was just like slabs of meat. They called pork in my first treatment center, like pork stringy slabs of pork, tender stringy slabs of pork. Well, I mean, I think almost everybody is already in agreement that pork is the breakfast meat. You know, yeah, you could eat it for other meals. Pulled pork sandwich, fantastic. Nobody's gonna kick that out of bed for eating crackers. But uh, but ultimately, pork. I don't think they have direct deposit. They didn't. They didn't present me with that option anyway. Tiramisu is fantastic. Yeah, it is.
Should I make? Should want to make a list and I'll send it to you?
Sure. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there are so many different flavors of Red Bull. I spent a long time today trying to restock
That's
the
tough.
Red Bull fridge. In part because I'm just getting familiar with the different cans, what they look like, and for two cans that are similar color, I'm having to look to see which one is which, and that whole 9 yards. So I would get the hang of it, but yeah, Red Bull, Monster Energy drinks. It doesn't have a medical plan or a 401k. I'm working at a little market.
Okay, so I already have a list that has frozen chicken, steaks, lettuce, cat food, laxatives, corned beef hash, aluminum foil, yellow mustard, yeast, and paper towels.
We have a lot of corned beef hash. I don't think we need steaks either. We may have gotten chicken last time. I'm not sure.
Okay, so look, I'll start a new one over.
Okay.
We do need yellow mustard though, right?
Yes, and butter,
Okay.
and oh, they still have that flavor, G. Um, let's see. We need butter. We need coffee filters.
Coffee filters.
Non-alcoholic beer.
No.
Switchback sauce is 1,000 sauce, huh?
Chips.
And chips.
Butter. Um.
I think we need more frozen dinners.
Mm-hmm.
They do limited runs.
Breakfast pastries or no, right?
Oh, I see. Thousand Island sauce. And Thousand Island sauce is basically just mayonnaise and ketchup. You'd think with a name as with make such a big claim. I talk about typology all the time. Usually I talk about it when somebody asks about it, but occasionally I'll initiate the conversation with some observations. Like I was talking earlier about how this typing session I uploaded tomorrow is very unusual because it has an intro and an outro. The intro just says, "I think I got this guy wrong," and then the outro says what I think he is after having thought about it some. But I didn't really go into details about that because um, for anybody who doesn't want I don't want to be a spoiler, spoiler alert. Hmm. Wouldn't kill to get some more eggs. Throw out the rest of the ones we currently have. Fruit pastilles. Jack Daniels makes a good barbecue sauce. I believe it. Yeah, it's murky. What are fruit pastilles even? A cookie?
Hershey's with almonds, gummy bears, raisin bran, ice cream.
Okay. It's a type of British candy. Huh. I mean, in general, I like to avoid buying fridge things that might go bad. Um, yes, good freestyle rappers are very likely to have any one or two. Uh, if you're gonna say highly skilled ones, yeah, almost for sure. I could imagine any third person getting reasonably good at it, but you know, improvisation in communicative ways is the domain of extroverted intuition. I remember that catch.
Okay.
Yeah, they would destroy any test, but they would destroy it just as much if they weren't freestyle rappers. You know, lots of people with extroverted intuition, one or two, are not freestyle rappers. You wouldn't say you dislike them. You just would say that they didn't meet your expectations. Hmm. Did you expect them to be fancier because they're British? Is that a home run? Or was it foul? Home run. Shea
Run, like
Langoliers.
Woo!
I mean, there may,
Yeah,
there
shit.
there may be TE elements to rapping written raps, I guess, but in general, TE is does not correlate with any good outcomes in music. I know probably about it. It's the natural wheelhouse of somebody who's extrovertly intuitive. Do I love siblings? Like I said, I don't have any siblings. So obviously, I don't really have an opinion about siblinghood in general. In general, music, art stuff, they are informed by most of all your two intuition functions, NE and NI. Secondarily, like FE is a factor. Um, do I have a least favorite song of all time? Boy, there are so many terrible songs. I mean, my least favorite songs are ones that I couldn't even begin to sing you because I listened to like 5 seconds of it and hated it instantly. And, like for example, the other day somebody had me listen to this song called Limelight by Rush. And it it was shocking how terrible it was. It was shocking the extent to which Rush made every, like literally every single decision that they made throughout the whole song, except for the tone of the instruments, which was fine, not worthy of note in particular in any particular direction. Um, and I was shocked that like anybody could claim to like that garbage, but people do, you know? It's like, hey, look at us. We're musicians with skills and chops, and instead of writing an actual song, we've pushed together all these random variations of different things into one purported track that has like time signature changes. It's got all kinds of problems. It's not an appropriate song, huh? Hmm. Hi, stop, Marcus. It's going fine. How does the sixth function in your work compare to the demonstrative function sessionics? Well, it's certainly competent, but it's countervalued, not unvalued. Nothing is unvalued, right? We treat things as absolute values or as instrumental values or as counter values. You don't like that song? What's not to like about Steal My Sunshine? The lyrics aren't very great, I guess. How do you let go? I mean, I don't know. You're asking FI kind of questions of me that I don't really have the answer to. It's called I Like You Best by Ella Red, but the lyrics are very inappropriate. Alright, well, we'll keep that in mind. Um, from what I understand from FI people, that to some extent you just have to sit with the feelings, and the feelings in that case mean the grief, the the sense of loss of something you're never gonna get back, you know, rather than feeling the feelings of wanting to change that. It seems TE rap does. What does that even mean? No, I mean extroverted intuition is improvisational communicative stuff. That definitionally is what it is. It's coming up with ideas on the fly, you know, including rap lyrics and so forth. You might be able to come up with some kind of TE protocol that you could use in theory instead of extroverted intuition that was reliant on some kind of formula, but obviously that would make terrible, terrible raps. Extroverted thinking is about ordination, things that have an order of operations and need to go in that order in order to function efficiently. That's not at all what freestyle rap is about. Believe me, I do some of it sometimes, you know, fairly often. A's up 5-1.
Wow.
We're 0-4 to start the season, but today's the day we turn it around, okay?
Yeah.
I don't have a shirt that says I have beaver fever. I saw a website claiming Ella Red says she wrote the song to push people to the edge of their comfort zone, and that made me very angry. Because you don't think that's an appropriate goal for an artist? I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think that a successful artist is going to manage those concerns in a very nuanced way, you know? There may be good cause to and may be a good idea to sometimes play with that comfort zone a little bit, but just being shocking or offensive or whatever is just not interesting at all. And depending on how extreme an example of the thing it is, it may even be traumatic. I don't know how common this is, but certainly it's been common for me throughout my life to be somewhat traumatized by media that showed dark stuff about humanity. It may be the case that types with a more communicative heavy stack, and Rachel and I are the two most communication heavy types. It could be that they're more susceptible to experiencing even like fiction stuff as though it were real, I guess, in some sense, and therefore be kind of traumatized by it. It may be the case that tendency correlates with being a more communicative type, or it may not. I'm not really sure. It's also conceivable that feeling traumatized in that fashion may correlate more strongly with more intuitive types rather than just with more communicative types. Because, you could. Well, I guess you couldn't exactly. Yeah, I guess not. I guess in general, more communicative types are going to be intuitive types, but for example, ENFP, they have expert intuition dominant. There as a communication function, and so you might call them a communicative type, but their second, third, and fourth functions are all experiential. So on balance, they've got three of their conscious functions experiential, one communicative. In contrast, Rachel and I both have three communicative, one experiential, and we have all three communicative up top. So we're the equivalent of ESFP and ISTJ. Yeah, those are the two types that are equivalently almost maximally experiential. What's the difference between a pigeon and a what? Between a pigeon and a dove? I'm not sure there really is any real difference between those things. Oh, right, my coffee that I was heating up in the microwave.
Is that what you're coming in here for?
Yep. Okay. A little bit anxious about work tomorrow because today I had one Adderall in me. Tomorrow I'm not going to have any. But you know what? It's not going to make that much of a difference either way.
What did you say?
So I'm a little anxious about work tomorrow because I'm not going to have any Adderall tomorrow. But I don't think it's going to make much of a difference anyway.
That's that's a reasonable thing to be worried about, or anxious about.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Um, I might be dragging a bit tomorrow, but it's not like I'm going to be dragging like I would be if there was a sudden cutoff from like 5 pills to none and I had a huge sleep deficit. I've been getting good sleep, so.
That's a good point.
So I'm already though kind of game planning how to be a little bit more efficient tomorrow. I'm going to, I think, go through like like in the beer fridge, for example. I'm gonna first go through and write down all the things that I need more of for, and then when I locate that, I'll check it off. So I'll try to locate all those different things at first, put them all in one place, and then figure out, circle the ones I can't locate, do all the ones I can. Be more efficient about it, have better TE. Today, I was just kind of like, well, okay. So, Doyle, I don't doubt that there are plenty of people with bad extroverted intuition who've been very successful as rappers. That's different than being a highly skilled freestyle rapper, which was what Gyalt initiated. You don't have to have good extroverted intuition to be successful as a rapper. You can look at people like Drake, for example, or Snoop Dogg. Neither of them obviously have much extroverted intuition going on, and that's fine. Um, it doesn't mean they make bad rap, but it does mean when it comes to the improvisational, on the fly kind of freestyle rapping, that that's not going to be their strong suit. And what makes them good at it at all is also not going to be TE. Even if they are TE types, what makes them good at it might be FI or NI, but conceivably, FE, FI, NI, NE. Those are things that make music good. TE does not. TI does not. SE is necessary to, in coordination with NI, to execute things cleanly and precisely, obviously. But SI also contributes that with muscle memory and stuff for playing music. But ultimately, what matters is vision, right? So you can look at a rapper like Eminem, and he's obviously very extroverted intuition. You'll hear him typed in various places online as ISTP that could not be more wildly wrong. He has mixed success in terms of vision. Uh, Sometimes he's got bangers, and sometimes he's got long-winded, self-indulgent stuff. He's a mixed bag, obviously. Uh, then you've got somebody like Baby No Money, right? He's vastly less extrovertly intuitive. Doyle, you obviously don't know anything about cardinal functions or what you're talking about because, for example, in this questioning of the matter, I mean, I'm a extremely experienced music producer, right? So yes, there are engineering skills that are great to have TE for, and yes, TE can be very effective at doing stuff like mixing and mastering. Understanding the order of operation, having a good sense of when to transition from one process of the recording process to another, one part of the process to another. Accomplishing what you're doing efficiently is has a lot to do with extroverted thinking, and that can be a great advantage in theory that people have. It unfortunately it correlates poorly in general with vision. And you and I probably won't agree on what comprises good vision on things, and that's fine. But understand that what I'm saying is when I'm judging people's uh, quality as artists, musical artists, right? That TE at best is always a necessary precondition of somebody involved with the process to execute the vision successfully. Um, it's important to remember that extroverted thinking is a way of interfacing with the dynamic system, which, to some extent, music is that. But uh, the problem is that kind of dynamic action is not the kind of action needed for freestyle rapping at all. That kind of dynamic action means you you act, adjust, and you need much more real time fluidity than that. Trust me, because I've done plenty of it. I'm very familiar with all of these processes. I can spot TE artists a mile away. They like to demonstrate chops, musicianship, and objective skills at the expense of artistic quality. It's it's just how it flies consistently. You'll get some good INTJ artists out there sometimes. But regardless, it's also important to remember that you can't rely on whatever other people are saying about somebody's type at all. It's completely unreliable because, first of all, nobody can actually type anybody without actually typing them. So nobody's doing that. Accordingly, these are all just speculative and somebody intuiting this or that. But we can meaningfully eliminate certain possibilities, such as a extreme uh, ease with language, fluidity, adeptness in communicating on the fly, coming up with ideas on the fly, rhymes on the fly, and being able to even sometimes tie that together into a complete story in some fashion. That's very much the purview of extroverted intuition. Now, keep in mind, half the TE types, TE DOMs, do have extroverted intuition in the third slot. But it's not good ideation in the sense that it's it's child, as they say in the metaphor town. It's the kind of extroverted intuition that says, what would make this clean, singular thing better? Adding a corkscrew to it. That's the kind of extroverted intuition you get in the third slot. Obviously, lyrics don't have anything at all to do with extroverted thinking. There's no way to. I mean, you can try to write lyrics according to some kind of formula. You know, pick an emotion, mention it in the first line. Blah blah blah. You could try to put together some kind of formula to do things, but that's not a good way to write lyrics, obviously. When we remember that extroverted intuition is a form of action that puts information on the external metaphysical field, which is to say, where we are right now, the internet or libraries or books or what have you, right? Places where human communication is kept in a static or, in this case, dynamic form. But so so when one takes actions that comprise speech acts, then one's going to be using extroverted intuition to some extent, unless it's memorized, in which case someone's going to be using introverted sensing. And extroverted thinking is a kind of, yes, I received it, Winston's mom. I will open it now that you are here. I will open it.
Oh, you got a package?
I did. It's in an exciting brown box, too. Okay. Let me take off the top first so I don't show the address and stuff. Okay. I think it's really packaged so tightly. Okay. This is a real adventure in extreme packaging. Alright, let's take a gander inside the box. Wow. That's a nice one. Thanks a lot, Winston's mom. I've got just the absolute stellar collection of hats. Let me just take this part off. Wait, how do we gotta do that? I guess I gotta cut it off. Oh no, I see. Okay. I do not know how to get that thing off. Alright, well, got to be some way to do it. I guess maybe I was supposed to cut this part. Alright. There. Alright, there. Ooh. Ooh la la. I'm looking like a fancy Frenchman. I mean Italian. This hat is Italian.
Oh, you do. You look so distinguished.
Thanks. This is how I won Distinguished Gentleman of the Year for 2025. Not this exact hat, but hats like this. Oh, thank you very much, Mrs. Bond. Very kind of you. And we're back. I accidentally changed the URL of this tab for some reason, but now we're back. Writing poetry is extroverted intuition. I mean, you could certainly make a case that specific forms, like specific forms of metered verse and so forth, that those have some kind of TE aspect to them because they represent an artificial formula of sorts. But really, that's not extroverted thinking because obviously, extroverted thinking is all about solvencies, goals, how to get from A to B, right? So if you're approaching art like that, well, That's not a good way to approach art. People can do it, right? You can come up with formulas and stuff to make art with, but it's not a good way to make art. Because art's not necessarily ordinated, even if there are ordinated aspects to it. What's determinant on the question of artistic value is one of intuitive resonance, universal intuitive resonance. LeBron or MJ, Ronaldo or Messi? I'll take Jordan and Messi. Well, yes, there's structure to poetry. That doesn't look. The thing to remember about extroverted thinking is we talk about artifacts of other people's extroverted thinking as examples of extroverted thinking. It's important to remember that they are artifacts of somebody's extroverted thinking. Like, what comprises extroverted thinking is the kind of thinking I've been doing since work, brainstorming or strategizing about how I'm going to approach it tomorrow a little bit differently. How I'm going to first make an inventory of what shelves need to be restocked in, say, the beer section, and then I'll try to gather all of the things I have listed there, and then I'll circle the ones that there don't seem to be any of. And so that's an excellent approach. That's an excellent example of, and shows you that extroverted thinking does matter a lot with things like that. How efficiently I do this job is going to depend on me having at least decent extroverted thinking. It is my sixth slot function, so it's demonstrative, as they say in socionics. It's the function I'm going to try to use when uh, when I'm faced with the kind of problems that TI doesn't address. You know, like this kind of problem. And yes, meter matters a lot, right? But for example, it is the case that Eric here can do a thing that very few indeed can try. It is that I can speak in metered verse, while others, when attempting this, will die. They'll have off feet be they first or last. They'll fail in finding any quick repast, regardless how they try they might. They'll never instigate this kind of sight. And the reason be, of course, because it's not a thing that one does with one's extra thought. Instead, in fact, it's an intuition thing. And accordingly, do I now prove with saying. Whatever. The point is, you can't do that with extrovert thinking. It's not about having a understanding of the order of operations by which to accomplish that. Instead, it's about intuiting on the fly things that work metrically, that you intuit on the fly do or don't work metrically, and your intuition is in something like that is going to be refined by practice, obviously. If you have never come to be taught metered verse, how to do it, difference between trochaic and iambic and whatnot, then you're not going to be able to do that regardless. But if you have been taught it, then if you are sufficiently intuitive, you'll be able to do that. But if you are not sufficiently intuitive, then you will not be able to do that. Same thing goes with freestyle rapping. And it's important to remember that I have TE sixths. I don't particularly enjoy TE, or I don't like, well, the less constrained the problem, the less I like TE. So with the thing at work, that's a very discrete problem, right? And it's going to there's going to be a pretty clear TE path from non-optimality to optimality in terms of way of doing things, right? So I don't mind TE in situations like that because I already know that there is a better way to do it. It doesn't have to be the absolute best way to do it, I can optimize as I go. That's also part of TE processes to some extent. To some extent, you got to do things, set up the foundation now for later application, right? But when I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure something out, I hate TE because one of the things I don't like about TE at all is that you don't get to know before you start trying to figure something out whether you're actually going to be able to figure it out or how long it's going to take you to figure it out. So you made up country music songs in the back of the cop car, huh? Yeah, well, could have been either. In that regard, ENFPs, ENTPs are going to look remarkably similar. We're both going to be able to generate stuff on the fly with approximately equivalent ease. The ENFP will do so primarily by presumably linking to her FI tool function. ENTP, if they're doing a good job, they're utilizing as little TI as possible in their lyric writing. Trying to go just any FE in terms of NE plus NIFE. And another thing to remember about extrovert intuition, that's distinct from extrovert thinking, is that if you're going to ascribe a specific value to it, that value is novelty, originality, disparateness from that which already exists. So, whereas TE is valuing efficiency and attainment of desired goals, solving of problems that one attends to. But your basic value would be solvency or efficiency, depending on how you want to frame it, I guess. Our songs began with "I'm drunk in the backseat of a cop car." Yeah, well, it does sound a little more ENFP than ENTP. Yeah, it's true, Gil, that it's good to shake it up ideationally with some switcheroos like change instrument and or play over different beats, potentially beats and bass lines, like put a couple of, if you're trying to find kind of jams, together a couple of different basic bass progressions. Go, Jay Willie. Go, Jay Willie. Go. You got there. Jacob Wilson with another hit. His bat's starting to come alive. Infield single there. Legged it out. It's actually he bunted for a single. Yeah, he bunted. Perfect bunt right down the first base line. Never went foul. The catcher was waiting as long as he could to pick it up. By the time he picked it up, it was too late. Jay Willie legged it out. Good job, guys. You're really putting together a nice game today. There's 0 outs, and we have 2 on, top of the 7th. Well, it seems like I'm going to be starting at 11 with the expectation that I'd be done by, I the what they indicated um, was that once I get the whole process down, it should take about 3 hours, a little more, a little less, depending on the day. So um, I don't know if I'm going to be going in every day of the week. I went in today. I'm going in again tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure how often they stock, but it's it's actually, if I hurry, it's about 15 minutes, which is a little faster than I expected, actually. It's literally the closest place I could conceivably work to my house. I think it's closer than the Triangle Market, which is about the same distance, but even if it's not closer by a short distance or something, it's less windy, so it's faster and less of a pain in the butt. So, it's going to be an adjustment, obviously. It's going to be an adjustment for my body, getting used to the, squatting and stuff. But there are a lot of things I can do to make things a little easier on myself. Like, there are certain refrigerators, when I'm restocking them, I should be probably like, there's a little like black stepping stool I could sit on and make it easier on me. And or if I wanted to maximize, I guess, long like sustainability, so I could get knee pads to so I could kneel there on the floor more comfortably while I do that. Yeah, right. So you and I had the same thought there. So I might do that. I also think it'd be a good idea for me to um, wear some kind of, I'm not exactly sure, like, I work up quite a sweat. I think I'd look pretty silly with a headband on, but I may get accustomed to that as well, and working more efficiently, I may find that I don't work up quite so much of a sweat. And we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out. Well, 5-2 athletics. That's a pretty promising score. However, we were up by 4 runs the other day against Toronto, and we somehow managed to lose that game anyway. I guess what, Ben? Yeah, well, it would keep the sweat out of my eyes. Uh, I will have to, you know, deal with those things perhaps one at a time as I get more accustomed to what I am going to be actually doing, actually needing, and what would be beneficial enough and what would just be an additional encumbrance of some kind. I'll have to get a feel for things with my introverted sensing. What I think is interesting about cognitive functions is that I don't hear anybody else ever talking about a function representing four kinds of attention and naming them appropriately, knowing, deliberation, action, interface. And also that there be four fields of attention: body, mind, outside world, internet, slash libraries, books, whatever, communicative media. Also including just talking to people face to face. But it's hard to imagine anybody getting cognitive functions adequately without arriving at that conclusion first, you know. Um, it's weird. It's weird because I like to position things as not my system, blah 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 blah, because it should be positioned like that. It's just the correct way of describing things. It's accurately representing reality. But at the same time, I guess I am the source of those core key concepts that you need. But they're observations, right? It's not like I generated that reality. It's observationally true about how people pay attention. It's observationally true about where people pay attention. Anyhow, I get that it's asking a lot of people to to understand in full why and how my explanations are preferable to all alternatives and exclusive where and exclusively so where exclusive. Um, and it's hard to get anybody to believe the idea that in this sea of different expressions of the same basic concepts that one guy is right and everybody else is to some extent wrong. It's understandable why people would have a hard time accepting that, and it's also understandable that a lot of people aren't evaluating aren't are to only a limited extent evaluating what I'm saying on its merits because they for my reasoning and explanations and stuff to be determinate would require them to have a lot of not just understanding of what I'm saying, but also understanding of what makes something determinate. Well, I'm down to my last non-alcoholic beer. I was sad. I'm gonna enjoy it. Let me get the cat some more water. Oh, all right. This is gonna be delicious. Oh my God. Has there ever been anything so delicious in the world? I don't think so. My phone's on low battery, so I think I'll just stream for the duration of this baseball game, which is drawing to a close here relatively soon. It's currently the seventh inning, bottom of the seventh. So, let's plug this bad boy in. You get random flashbacks of insignificant moments from your childhood when you play the guitar? Huh. That's weird. Sometimes I get kind of flashbacks to when I started playing the guitar. And I get this resonance with that feeling that I had when I first started playing the guitar, like, oh my God, I can do this kind of, and how exciting it was. I had this Takamine for a long time, acoustic guitar. It smelled so good. So it was in one of those nice hard cases with the fur inside of it. It always smelled so good whenever I took it out. Hello, Josh NC. Sorry I didn't say hi to you. I was a little slow on the uptake there. I spent all my childhood singing, singing, singing all the time. And I still do now to this day. I still sing all the time. Sometimes I sing actual songs. More often, I'd say I sing actual songs with different words. And sometimes also I'll sing little made up songs. Sometimes I'll just sing like melodies, more like in the shower, probably. It would be more likely to do it there. Like kind of like classical melodies. Like boom boom ba 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 ba, like that kind of stuff. Kind of melody that makes you think, what is this, a funeral mass? Drake Baldwin. Well, Atlanta has two on, one out here in the bottom of the seventh inning. Thanks, Rachel. I am a bit of a songbird. All right, 1 and 2 is the count. We're gonna need a couple of outs here. All right, let's not screw around. Who's on the mound right now? Uh-oh. No, that's not. That's a simple out to Soderstrom in left field. And yes, I know you might find this hard to believe. Soderstrom did successfully make the play. It wasn't a very hard play, but he's a pretty bad left fielder. I am a lot like a rhinestone cowboy, except without the rhinestones or the cowboy. Oh, you missed so much, Gil. Oh my God, you missed so much. You missed all the best parts. You should know, Winston's mom, and anybody else who hasn't heard, that that typing session begins with a little intro and ends with an outro. And what the intro says is, I got this guy wrong. And what the outro says is why I think I got it wrong and uh, what I think the right type is. So there's a little excitement teaser for you, everybody. Who, if anybody plans on watching it. Well, the intro is just like 20 seconds long. The outro is like 5 minutes. Yes, in the past, I typed in ESFJ, apparently. Oh, I don't remember that, but apparently that's what I typed in as. But the point is, then I typed him wrong again yesterday. So nice job. Nice job. What is that pitcher's name? Sterner. Okay, that's Sterner. Justin Sterner. Cool. No, well, you'll get to find out tomorrow what happened, what I think happened in general, and uh, it'll be interesting to discuss it. I'll be interested to see what people say. Of course, this morning I was able to take one Adderall. Tomorrow I won't be able to take any, so I may be pretty. I may not be super interested in live streaming. Yeah, he's doing well today. The A's are doing well today. You know, it's nice to see us. It's nice to see us string some hits together. It's not in 16 years. It's in 16 hours. Yeah, 16 hours. That's different, show media. It's nice to see Lawrence Butler get a little go. It's nice to see Jacob Wilson get a couple hits. You know, since he is my starting shortstop on both my fantasy teams. I figured he was a steal. I could get him late, you know. Well, I've got my two teams, the persimmons and the pears. Now, in my current matchup, I am losing 133 to 129. But this game's not over yet. Hey! Trouble, that fucking cat, I tell you. What a horrible guy he is. Trying to get Capillo. Kurtz has walked three. No, he struck out 3 times. That's not good. Jay Langoliers has struck out twice. Bryce Terang, he's struck out once, but at least he's got 2 RBI and 1 total base. Jacob Wilson, 3 total bases, 2 RBIs. That's pretty good. Ian Happ, he got 2 walks. Tyler Soderstrom, well, they haven't updated this yet because, oh no, maybe they did. He has 1 strikeout. He's only had 1 plate appearance. How? Oh, I guess, no, he's probably had more, just had 1 strikeout. The other one's just regular outs. Vlad Guerrero Jr., he's got 2 total bases, 1 RBI, 1 walk. And I've got 2 pitchers pitching today. I've got no 1 pitcher pitching today, namely Shohei Ohtani. He's my pitcher. So that's pretty good. Hopefully he'll do well. Now let's look at the pairs. My other team. Got the Simmons, and then I've got the pairs. All right, let's look at the pairs. I'm getting spanked in this current matchup by a team called A's Are Life. What? That's not my team name? No, it's not, unfortunately. So in this one, oh, can I move him? Is it still time? No. I don't, no, I don't have, that's right. I couldn't move him. So I have one guy who's not playing today. Minnesota second baseman Luke Keechel. And I don't have anybody to replace him who is playing today, so he's just going to have to be an empty slot. I've got Gabriela Moreno, the Arizona catcher. That's coming on later. Freddie Freeman coming on later. Manny Machado coming on later. I've got Jacob Wilson doing well again. Brent Rooker on this team. I got Brent Rooker. He's got 3 strikeouts, 1 total base. That's not so great. George Springer. He's had 2 walks and 2 strikeouts. It just kind of cancels each other out. Lawrence Butler. Well, he's got 1 walk, 1 run, no total bases. I guess he just walked. Rafael Devers. He doesn't play today. Can I replace him with somebody? Yes. All right, so now I've replaced him with Fernando Tatis Jr. Obviously, he's a better person than Rafael Devers. And he's much better. So I think I'm going to lose this week, but what is my record? Oh, 0-0-0, huh? I guess that's true for both of these. Yeah. Well, oh, now I'm tied with the Venezuela team. So as you see, the Persimmons is doing pretty well. 133 to 133 versus Venezuela team. Devers. Oh, okay. Devers. So I didn't go through all my pitching staffs, but those are my teams. I could go through my pitching staffs. On this team, I got Shohei, Yamamoto, Mason Miller, Zach Gallen, Drew Rasmussen, Abner Uribe, and Jack Flaherty. And on the bench, I got Jung Hoo Lee, Brandon Lowe, and Gabriel Moreno. Now, for my other team, the Pairs, that pitching staff, I got Paul Skeens, Cade Smith, George Kirby, Zach Gallen, Griffin Jacks, Robbie Ray, and Matthew Boyd. And on the bench of this team, I have Salvador Perez and Jonathan India, as well as Rafael Devers. I mean, maybe I did. I thought I tried to get some good pitchers early on, but I mean, I got Mason Miller, Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani. Those are all pretty good pitchers. The other ones, I just went with like I ended up picking the best pitcher available at the time. You know, looking probably at uh, points rather than rank. So you know, one does what one can at fantasy baseball. But you know, if I start seeing people not performing, I'm not afraid to drop them, get a different player. You know, that's fine. I'm not gonna be attached to any Jung Hoo Soo, whatever his name is, that horrible Giants outfielder. Obviously, he's not good. The Giants seem to just have really drank a big bottle of stink. Okay, yeah, I'm a little more attached to my A's. So, um, it's pretty obvious. I should get rid of Kurtz, start Vlad at first base, put Shohei at DH, and get another pitcher. I might have to do that to Kurtzy. I mean, I could put him on the bench, get rid of a bench player. Maybe that'd be better, you know. But first baseman, I'm not. I don't feel well. And I know it's only 5 games into the season, but Kurtzy's off to a rough start, and Vlad Guerrero is definitely the better option. So yeah, I'm gonna I'd bench him. But the thing is, I can't do that until Shohei's done pitching this time. Then next time I'll be able to move Shohei into the DH. I'll put Vlad at first. I'll either uh, bench Kurtz or drop somebody else and pick up another pitcher at that point. But for this week, I'm locked into Shohei being a pitcher. What did I do before being a YouTuber? Well, I mean, I worked and I was a competition debate coach, so I was pretty into that for a while, and uh, he's not doing great. Well, it doesn't matter for fantasy baseball, but a concern for me is he is a terrible left fielder. I'm sorry. I thought he was going to botch another fairly straightforward play in left field tonight, and he did make the play, made it look a lot more difficult than it should have been, right? Um, he's a real defensive liability. When you toss Lawrence Butler into the mix, who's also not a good defensive outfielder. Uh, and then we've got somebody kind of platooning in outfield. So some days Denzel Clark gets off, and when that other guy is in the outfield too, McNeil, he, he seems like a competent enough outfielder, I guess, but none of them seem like they're all gonna, except for Denzel Clark, our whole outfield is gonna have a negative WAR defensively for sure. I don't know if they do just defensive WAR, but you know what I'm getting at. Like they're gonna cost us a number of runs and potentially games. They've already, we would have lost that game anyway, I guess. But hi, Hugh Bartholomew. We got him from the Mets because he kept fighting with his teammate Francisco Lindor. Oh, I did not know that. I mean, he's hasn't I haven't seen much of him yet. He seems like a more major league level outfielder, like not good really, but not terrible like Soderstrom and Lawrence Butler. Soderstrom was never meant to be an outfielder. He was going to be a first baseman, but then, Curtsy came up and they're like, well, we don't want you at first base anymore. So he's like, fine, I'll become an outfielder. Well, listen here, Tyler Soderstrom. You don't become an outfielder overnight, okay? You don't just go from, oh, I'm a first baseman, to, oh, I'm an outfielder and be just fine. They also played him some at third base last year. You know, Kotze and his wiggle waggle and see what happens. And we really have a problem in outfield as well because Denzel Clark is a great defensive outfielder, but he swings a wet noodle for a bat. He just at best you're gonna get like a single from him, maybe a walk if you're lucky. Just as many strikeouts as walks for sure. Uh, yeah, and people forget baseball is one of those games where you know, like sometimes you could drop a fly ball in the outfield and it not cost your team any runs. And sometimes you could have the Yankees World Series fifth inning from 2 years ago, where it doesn't just cost you the inning or the game, it kind of costs you the whole World Series. That's how important defense is. You know, that I got so much entertainment out of that though. I feel bad for you and Rachel and everything, but I was on mushrooms during that game, and I thought it was so hilarious. The ball popping right out of Judge's glove kills me. Yeah, and then what's his name? What's that guy's name? The shortstop. What's the shortstop's name? Yeah, Garrett Cole. Knocked her from first base, but instead, helpfully pointing. Over there. That's where you should go. Volpe, thank you. Well, at some point during that inning, he looked like he was crying. I don't know if he really was crying, but it looked like it. So, I'm kind of distressed by the weakness of our defense in the outfield. And to be honest, Jacob Wilson, not the greatest defensive shortstop. He seems to do a lot of like kind of like ballet stuff, like jumping in the air unnecessarily. Or he kind of always look like he's crying. Okay, maybe he's an INFP or something. Hi, Hippocrates, Hippocrates, Hippocrates. And of course, Aaron Boone. Obviously, I want to say Joe Torre throwing sunflower seeds at his face like this, like you're supposed to be putting those in your mouth, bro. You're supposed to like chew them a little bit before you spit them out or something. You know how the U.S. kind of puttered out at the end of the World Baseball Classic, and now everybody's all, oh, Judge is a choke artist or whatever. I don't think so at all. I think he did fine, but you know, the U.S. manager was constrained by Major League Baseball teams' requests. Like he couldn't put Mason Miller in unless it was a save situation. So at 2-2 in the ninth inning, you put in that other guy. Judge had choking tendencies for most of his career. The last year he was great in the playoffs. Hmm. I mean, I see him as kind of like a little feast or famine, but usually feast. I mean, I think it's well. Let me ask you. Let me ask anybody here who's got an opinion on that. Who's a better pure hitter, Shohei or Judge? Obviously, with Shohei, you get the pitching and that, yeah. But I'm saying just on pure hitting, who's the better pure hitter? I think most people would probably say Judge. And by pure hitter, I mean evaluating only hitting stats. I don't mean like a singles hitter like Rod Carew or something. Right. I think most people would say that. But here's the thing. I've never seen Judge do the kind of crazy shit that Shohei does periodically. Like having some like 12 RBI game. Remember that one game around when he was chasing 50-50 and he had like 10 RBIs or 12 RBIs or something like that. It was he went like 6 for 6 or I don't know. It was one of the craziest games anybody's ever had in history. It seems like Judge doesn't really do that. Do I have any memory deficits? No. I still seem to be fine cognitively. It's something I worry about. I pay attention to a lot more than I ever did when I was younger, and accordingly, I do encounter more like positives in some sense than I used to. I'm obviously paying a lot more attention to whether or not I can remember the word for something. But as far as I can tell, I'm still in good shape. I don't seem to be experiencing any obvious example of decline. Um, like like this morning, I put my overalls I was gonna change into up on this shelf in the bathroom while I was doing this other thing, and then I didn't remember where I had set them down. But it's the same sort of thing that I might have done my entire life, I suspect, being absent-minded and so forth. I'm SI fourth, often distracted in my head thinking about stuff. So, you know, funny I can remember a long iteration of instances where I forgot the word for something. Like one time I forgot the word for Arco, the gas station that has AM PM. And I was referring to AM PM, and I can even tell you what uh, what the conversation was about. It was about words that begin with amp, but and I came up with AM PM, but I could not remember the word for Arco. So, like, is that indicative of some decline cognitively? I don't think so. I think I probably always had an equivalent amount of instances. I know all types can be addicts, but does having SI, bad SI, make one more likely to abuse drugs? I don't know. I really don't. Um, my dad had tool function SI, and he had, I think it's fair to say, some kind of a problem with alcohol. Until he didn't. Like he quit, and then he started drinking again, but didn't consume excessively anymore. So, who knows what you think of that. My friend Dave Porter, SI Dom, he had a problem with alcohol. People get addicted to different things for different reasons, it seems like. I got tested growing up. I had high verbal reasoning, high fluid reasoning, and a piss poor working memory. Mm. Well, my working memory's not great either, but it's never been. I might, it may have been that I would have used to be able to like remember more stuff than I was there at work. Like, I'd go, okay, I need to get these three flavors. And I'd say them to myself, and I'd get back over there. But I had a lot of stuff going on in my head today, trying to scramble to get caught up with this process and everything. I'd say 90% of humanity is addicted to something, making coffee, etc. Yeah, and some people like my ex-wife Candace was addicted to shopping, spending money. Yeah, I had a lot to process because it was my first day actually on the job, and I was trying to learn all the things I had to to do while also trying to remember things that I needed to remember for doing the things that I was learning to do. So that was a little bit understandable that it was hard to keep everything straight today. But I'll do a much better job tomorrow. I've already got some strategies for improving my efficiency and causing myself less distress in the process. Simple things like first, survey, like say I'm talking about just the beer fridge now. First, survey the things, write down all the things that need more stuff. and then try to gather all of that stuff together, bring it over, circling the things that you can't find because maybe they don't have any more, or maybe I just can't find it. And then put all the things up. That's a much better way of doing things than the way I was doing them today. So I will be a lot more efficient tomorrow. I'll be a lot more efficient tomorrow. It is the bottom of the ninth inning. The A's are still up by 3 runs, but they have 2 men on, 1 man out, tying run at the plate. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. Yup, would not hurt. Swing and a miss. 1-2 is the count. Okay. Everybody's playing no doubles defense in the outfield as far back as they could go with a 3 run lead. 2 men on, understandably why. That's strike three. Down goes Frazier. It wasn't Frazier, but uh, down he went anyway. As Leiter, our new relief pitcher, is on in the safe situation, I guess. I had heard that Kato is planning on doing closer by committee. So I think he doesn't feel confident right now that he knows who his guy is. I think it's good to give various people tries, and maybe it keeps working and keep doing that, right? Like if in fact you next time you try a different guy or closer and he succeeds, then maybe keep trying different guys. Who knows? But Lighter induces the pop up, and that should be the ball game. The Athletics win their first game of the year. Good job, guys. Good job. I am proud of you, and you should be proud of yourselves. Yes, indeed. I played wiffle ball when I was in the States. That's close to baseball I ever got, except for passing the Pittsburgh Stadium in the Metro. Well, it has become, since I started following the A's, I would say my number one sport. I basically never miss a baseball game that features the Athletics during. I don't watch spring training. I plan to watch some spring training games this spring, but I just couldn't. I just, it's like, I just couldn't care about it. I'm sorry. Does that make me lesser as an A's fan? Maybe, but I just couldn't care about spring training. So, it's going to do it for the athletics game. I watched 1 or 2 games. It was a nice taste of baseball, but just made me crave the real thing more. Well, I did watch some WBC. Hey, Hero Lamb. I did watch that, and I thought that was pretty exciting. Like it, I get that the beginning of spring training that hadn't started yet, but once that was going on, I definitely would rather watch that than spring training games. There was only a couple of the athletics games that were on TV, so I only had a couple opportunities to watch them. There were a lot more Giants games, spring training games on TV. It's hard to distinguish good NE versus SE and TE and FE. In socionics, it all has similar context. Right. Well, I mean, The distinction is NE and SE are both action functions. TE and FE are both interface functions. SE and NE operate under the assumption that you can take, like, the reality is turn based, that you can take your time to complete your action, and that nothing will change while you're doing that, and then they have their turn to make their action. If, like, you're talking back and forth, for example. And same with expert sensing, though. Like, if I'm digging a ditch, I'm operating with the assumption that nothing's going to change until I'm done with the ditch, right? And expert thinking, expert feeling, well, there are ways of acting that require you to take a little action, know something, adjust, take a little action, know something, adjust. TE, it has to do with engaging with things that have their own logic. So that includes business, it includes fixing a refrigerator, it includes um, like anytime you're trying to figure out any problem, it's probably the kind of problem that has its own logic. Like, for example, Rachel's chair is broken. It has a spring that is poking out into her butt. So if I were to try to fix that problem, I would conceivably do meow or meow, look into how to fix it. Instead, we attempted to mitigate the problem by putting a cushion on top of it. I was given too much time alone and acting, so social dialogue isn't my best. Eric, you big goof, how you doing? Well, Sashu, I'm doing fine. Sports was never my thing. Running, yes, because it had a purpose to get somewhere fast, but no interest in sports. I do, however, have appreciation for the skill involved. Well, you're right. All four of those functions are forms of action. Okay, the the TE and FE interface functions, they differ from extroverted intuition and extroverted sensing in part because of like they're more involved, right? Like extroverted intuition, extroverted sensing, you can understand them primarily as action on the external field of their respective attentional kind, like experiential, communicative. Whereas extroverted feeling requires you to know. So the reason why extroverted intuition and extroverted sensing are paired with deliberation functions is because they operate on that kind of system, what you might call a static system. So I can think out my entire legal brief, write it, edit it, whatever, and then extrovertedly sense by turning it in, right? And then expect to get a response from the judge after that, which will then allow me to determine my next course of action and then complete that, etc. With extroverted feeling, for example, you can't do that in the sense that whether I should be like, hey, great to see you, or whether I should be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, depends on what you're going to say, right? So, in that sense, I have to know while I'm acting on an ongoing basis. I've got to know how your emotional displays, the words you say, reveal things about your emotional state, and also what you want slash would be good in this, a good response or appropriate response for this kind of situation, right? So accordingly, you can't plan things out and then take that action. You plan it out in advance and then take that action when you get there because it's not that kind of system. As opposed to this kind of engagement here, you're asking me this question. I'm able to complete my full answer, explain everything, and then have you follow up, right? So it is the case that your your epistemics, your knowledge and deliberation, they're both forms of epistemology, way of knowing and determining things. Believing, knowledge, determination, those kind of things. But they're nevertheless different from each other. Determination takes time, knowledge is instantaneous. You know the answer to Columbus sailed the ocean blue, it's 1492. You determine the answer of 1492 times 13,113. Did you ever want a pink pony when I was a little boy? No, but I did want an easy bake oven. I just thought, damn, I want to make some of those little pies. And looking back, I can't blame myself. I was wise to want to cook those little pies. I'm sure they were delicious. You wanted a pink pony? Well, I hope you got one. My daughter was a big fan of My Little Pony when she was young. And she was also a big fan of Full House when she was a little girl. She was a big fan of lots of things. You still want one now you're a 38-year-old man. Well, do you want a real pony that's dyed pink? You love cooking, especially outdoors. Or do you just want a doll? I can I can assure you that dolls can be a lot of fun as an adult. You know, I have a variety of dolls that I play with. I never played with dolls like this as a kid, but I do now. Hello, my name is Tiffany. I am Tiffany. This is my YouTube channel. How's it going, everybody? No, my name is Tiffany. You're not Tiffany, I'm Tiffany. I'm Tiffany with an I. Tiffany. That's two I's, you dollar. I'm Tiffany with an I. Tiffany. No, you're retarded. You need to get out of here, fake Tiffany. She is retarded. She has Down syndrome. Tiffany with two eyes does. I've been Tiffany with two eyes. That's not what I meant, Tiffany with two eyes. He's like the mini trolls with the hair. It's interesting. Thanks for your thoughts. I read comments earlier regarding you. He's an interesting read as well. Hey, Trishawn. How you doing? Yeah, sure. That's actually a fake miniature Barbie. That's not from the Barbie line. It's like off-brand. I didn't know what it was when I got it in a bag of random dolls at the thrift store. But, you know, I had a few dolls all of that size. And I since lost my original Tiffany and was able, blessedly, to find another one on the internet. And I got along with her that other Tiffany there too. The other Tiffany came with it. Tiffany with two eyes. Because regular Tiffany is right. She should be called Tiffany with an I because her name is spelled Tiffany. naturally, Tiffany with an I on the end should be called Tiffany with two I's because Tiffani. So, regular Tiffany is right. And yet, that's not normally how people would think about it. No thanks. Happy. I'll pass. If I want somebody to do my nails, I'll ask my wife like a normal man. Because that's how men normally get their nails painted by their wives. Mine are painted regular color. It's kind of peachish, pinkish peach, I'd say. Normal men ask their friends, huh? Well, I mean, normal men may ask their friends, but my point would be that would be an abnormal way of getting them done. I don't have any hair, and no. Eric, why did you stop doing the group live streams you used to do? Um, Generally, I didn't enjoy them very much, and or I found it frustrating to not make progress ideationally, intellectually by way of discourse, but instead have to like battle everything. But also just a general sense that I think it can definitely be worthwhile making some content with one other person. I've had individuals I made content with in the past to good effect, but my problem is that I probably would enjoy a little bit more diversity in my approach to things. These things are a lot easier to do. Yeah, well, things have, it's like I was, I was behaving in certain ways, and then my parents died, and I, I went into a recovery period, a period of being very much subdued from what I had been prior. And I feel like I'm getting back into the flow of things, but like the problem with panel discussions in general is there's not enough audio space for ideas to genuinely get talked about in any way where people are responsive to one another. And a lot of the things that people want to talk about as though they were open questions needing discussion, or actually resolves questions needing no discussion. I guess that's part of the reason too is that other people continue to want to engage with the idea ideationally, whereas my understanding of things got more and more conscribed the more clarity I had on it. At a certain point, once I had resolved certain questions, then discussing those questions further would be counterproductive. Well, look what we're doing again. We're watching the cat eat. No, you can't make your unconscious conscious. That's ridiculous. For somebody like you who's an INFJ or somebody like me who's an ENTP, it's very important for us to metacognate, have a map that explains why we are the way we are. Like Rachel, for example, INFJ, has almost no access to subjective data. It's certainly no valued access. Like you got countervalued 6 slot FI and super unconscious, instrumentally valued SI. So it would make sense that for Jung, to understand himself in this way would represent a form of actualization, appropriately so. But he's projecting his own frame of reference onto all the other types there. And in fact, even in doing so, he's not making those functions conscious. He just has awareness of them. Do you experience FE insecurity when buying dolls at the store? Reminds me of the time I had to get my bathtub fixed. I lied to the maintenance guy by saying my wife was the one who takes baths. No, I don't worry about that stuff. I don't. I don't know. I might. I might think it's like I feel a little bit of. Like I try to keep things a little undercover when I'm making videos with them out in public, I guess. But when it comes to buying them at the store, it doesn't really cross my mind. I just think, I'm in California. People are weird. People are weird here. No, I believe that's a quote from him. I agree that Jung said that. I'm saying this is just another example of Jung being wrong. Jung's wrong all over the place. His writings are not intended to explain things in a TI sound way. And that's fine. He came up with a genius idea and he did his all the work he needed to do. I figured it out the rest of the way for him. And, other people helped along the way before I got to the subject matter. Certainly, socionics made put a lot of effort into their attempt. Whether or not that's a good thing, well, that's okay, Trayshawn. It was a few years ago now. It'll be coming up on 4 years before too long. And I seem to be on the other side of that period of my life, or at least certainly coming out to the other side here. Things have, the last month or two have really started to turn around. I feel like I've kind of found my footing some more. You know, I'm I'm less consumed with guilt, sadness, somewhat less consumed with anxiety, but I still have plenty of anxiety. It's appropriate to have a decent amount of anxiety about the future when you're my age because you got to make sure that you're covered. And also, I feel like things are moving in my life. Obviously, I got this job, and that's cool. It's going to be, you know, it's it's honest work. It's physical work, but it's for a short amount of time per day that I think my body can handle it no problem. I can't grasp the concept of eighth slot SI not being conscious. Yeah, well, I could tell you exactly what it looks like with my INFJ wife. She will, when asking questions like, um, or even if she's not asking the question, but if she encounters some video that says, you're not in a healthy relationship if if your partner does this. Well, she'll be all worried if I do that thing to some extent because she's not accessing her own experience to validate whether or not I treat her well, whether or not she's in a healthy, happy relationship. She's not accessing her introverted sensing and she's not accessing her introverted feelings unless she's feeling bad, in which case, then that's predominant in her consciousness, and she has trouble wrestling with what it means because she's wanting to turn everything into something that means something. She wants every good thing about this relationship to have cascaded down from some rule, right? And that is the reason she's like that is because she has very little conscious accessing of her own experience in making determinations about things like this. INFJ is the most distant of all types from themselves. They have no absolute valued subjective function, you know, and one of them super unconscious, the other one countervalued. So that's just for what you'd say epistemics, subjective epistemics. The action functions don't really qualify as either subjective or objective because subjectivity and objectivity link usually to decision making determinations, you know, ways of calculating the validity of something. I seem a little apprehensive about the job. Well, I'm not so much apprehensive about the job. I'm a little apprehensive about tomorrow because today I had an Adderall. No, no. FI is how you feel about something, right? So she could access how she feels about me a lot more easily than her own experience. And a lot of times we'll be sitting next to each other and she'll feel strongly affection for me in the moment and will express that to me and or want to pet me and or kiss me or something like that, right? So that's FI. Um, Feeling how important I am to her, all that kind of stuff. That is not, and also you could say she will be aware if I hurt her feelings too, okay? But that's not the same thing as referring to her experience. Her experience means well, like let's say there was one time that we got into an argument where she was upset because of it. The reality was dopamine crash, but expressed as an FI feeling that if I loved her more, or if I loved her well, I would give her more presents. Okay. So it may have been the case that I hadn't given her a present very, very recently, but not that long ago, I'd given her a big present, and I have a long history of giving her presents. So in that instance, you see her FI is a lot more conscious than her SI. She is aware that she feels deprived of presence at the moment. Well, exactly the same way exactly what I'm explaining here. So accordingly, she's able to process the fact that she feels present deprived, but is unable to know, because they're both different ways of knowing, right? She's unable to know that in reality, over if she looks back over some stretch of time, that I've given her lots of presents. So that's an example of FI being more conscious than SI. But I would have NI tool. So what do you think Jung was missing precisely? Well, I mean, the point is Jung was being wrong in lots of different ways. Right? There's there's nothing to say precisely about what Jung was missing. There's just here's how you articulate it correctly, and when you do, this is what it says. Those ideas of perceiving functions and judging functions being different, that's a wrong idea fundamentally. Like action functions and knowledge functions are both called perceiving functions. One of them involves communicative action. One of them involves physical action. Um, one involves intuitive knowing. The other involves experiential knowing. Those things don't go together. Okay, they just don't. There's a convenient label for it, sure, but that's not. That doesn't mean anything. So it is the case that people have a shocking amount of unconsciousness on their unconscious functions, regardless of whether they're quote unquote perceiving or judging functions. So, for example, if you look at which functions are the easiest to test and are the tests most reliable on, well, they're most reliable on TE, that's a judging function. NE, that's an action function. NI, that's a knowledge function. And to a somewhat lesser extent, TI. So with these with these functions, you see that you've got TE is super easy to test. I can test blind spot TE and an INFJ and a heartbeat. I simply ask them to ordinate a simple task like taking the trash out to the dumpster or something. You ask them to break that into 5 steps. Shockingly, you may be shocked to learn this, but INFJs and ISFJs cannot do that. When I asked my neighbors an ISFJ who doesn't know anything about typology, also, it's like, hey, can you break this task into 5 steps? He just thought about it for a second, looked at me and said, no. He said, no. You might think if you have some TE somewhere that it's inconceivable that somebody could not do that at all. They couldn't say, well, first you get the bag out, take it outside, put it in the trash can, come back in, replace the trash bag with a new trash bag, put the trash can back. 5 steps. No problem, right? You'd think anybody can do that. Are certain polars more overpowered? I don't see how being NI polar hurts people all that much. SE, FI, and TI polar all seem so crushing in comparison. Well, I mean, I guess it depends what your environment is like. It's true that SE polar is kind of going to be the most anti-rewarded, most punished by society. TI polar is going to be pathologized as some kind of learning disability. Okay, well, if in fact INFJ Minerva, you can break it down into 5 steps, and if you could indeed break down things into steps, if I gave you more complicated questions, etc., if you could answer a few more TE questions, then you're not an INFJ, and you never were. People's type doesn't change. Don't you think saying that SI is not perceiving is redefining what Jung meant, though? It doesn't matter what Jung meant, right? Jung was wrong. So, like, for example, what's another good example? Uh, it doesn't matter what What's a good example of this? Something that's developed over time but retained some core concepts. Like it doesn't matter what Sun Tzu said about the art of war. Our conventional contemporary understanding of war is it, at worst as good as Sun Tzu's observations about this, at very worst, and in almost every instance, way better. So you wouldn't say that Sun Tzu was misguided in his sentiments, but you'd say that he did not understand the full complexity of things in the way that people do now. Equivalently with Jung had the good idea of cognitive functions, but he was not equipped to explain it correctly. He was not correct in his explanations of it, and nobody should refer to him as any kind of authority on the matter. I mean, INFJ Minerva, it's not easy for either an ISFJ or an INFJ to copy from somebody else's experience ordinated steps because they have to go in a certain order, right? And it makes I get it. You have TE somewhere other than polar, probably almost for sure. And so accordingly, it seems impossible to you that somebody could not only not do that, but never be able to do that. It's conceivable with enough practice they could game a question if they knew exactly the task I was going to ask them to ordinate. But with a few different twists on the question, it would quickly become evident that they were completely incapable of doing that. What you could argue that, Faishan. I am successfully arguing that my articulation of cognitive functions is correct, exclusively so, and compellingly powerfully so. It's so much better than anything else anybody is saying about the subject. And most importantly, it's both observationally true and experimentally established with myriad typing sessions to back up the data. Plus, it's all replicable tests that other people can do. It doesn't require them to use their intuition to attribute arbitrary weights to different attributes or answers, different kinds of responses. No, nobody else is correctly articulating anything about cognitive function. Because if in order to do so, they'd have to first understand that there are four fundamentally different ways of paying attention, and that each of them has an experiential and a communicative half. You might say, well, how do you know this, Eric? Well, it's observationally so, and it's comprehensive, right? I have operational definitions as well for all of these terms, which nobody else has. So other people can use the term to mean exactly the same thing I do. And that's what's missing in cognitive functions across the board is replicability and, a rigorous attempt to remove the need for someone's intuition in typing people. Not only is the correct approach to cognitive functions, aka the one I'm explaining and using, the most robust thing in typology, it's the most robust thing in psychology. Maybe not in psychiatry, but in psychology for sure. The big problem that we have when dealing with trying to assess people in their consciousness and stuff is people are open systems. They are responsive to things they learn. So if I'd never learned about the Milgram experiment, then maybe I'd be subject to that same, I guess, moral failing of continuing to do what you should have independently determined as morally unacceptable because some authority figure tells you to do so. Because I learned about that way back in high school, there's no chance that any equivalent experiment would ever catch me. It wouldn't trick me, right? I only have to learn one thing, one key idea, and then I can't be caught again. So almost all psychological assessment of people is subject to that to some extent or another, right? If it's not subject to that, then it's subject to a variety of problems linked to self reporting. And that's why, if you're going to meaningfully engage cognitive functions, you've got to try to remove the self reporting equation as much as possible. That means it doesn't matter what people report about their interests, what they're good at, blah, blah, blah. Don't tell me you're good at this, show me you're good at it. And because I've evaluated so many different people using the same basic ideas for tests, in other words, correctly understanding what things link directly to what functions and where I don't have such linkages as well. It's not one way you know that I'm so much more writer than everybody else is because there are areas where I don't, where there are gaps. I do make mistakes, and other people can point them out because what I'm doing means something specific, right? They can say, "Hey, Eric, I thought results like this on this polar test were supposed to be determinate and eliminate all other possible types. Why did you ignore those results in this instance?" Right? You can hold the typologist accountable when they're doing their job right, and nobody else is doing their job right accordingly. Critically, what's important to remember is there are few things in typology assessment that are determinate, but there are some, and you can usually get a determinate type on somebody used by virtue of process of elimination accordingly. Is it real science? It's what I'm doing isn't real science. Like I'm 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 successfully utilizing data I gather for to refine my process, but I'm not gathering it in some kind of way. I'm not doing work designed to publish an academic paper about it later on. However, you know, if you were to talk about Einstein's musing on the inertial observer, which is to say that um, that a person falling from a house is going to feel weightless while they're in free fall, meaning that they in fact are not being pulled down by the gravity of Earth in any meaningful sense, but from their frame of reference, it is the same as if they were in outer space. So that thought experiment has a lot to do with how relativity got laid out in terms of math. But the point is that all of Einstein's math was predicated on some observations and thought experiments. And nobody would say relativity isn't science, but that kind of uh, correct observations, kind of logically inferred theory of things, is exactly what cognitive functions is. Could we get empirics that meet the criteria of science? Well, I mean, if you're talking about the criteria of psychology, hell yeah, of course, obviously. Psychology is the softest of soft sciences. And what I'm saying about cognitive functions is far more robust than anything else in psychology. I'm talking about normal psychology. If you're talking about explaining, like, that this kind of bad manifestation of self as an adult linked to childhood abuse, those kind of explanations are very robust. But I'm talking about normal psychology. And people will try to explain human beings as, say, an expression of Maslow's hierarchy of needs or any number of these other kind of sort of reductionist explanations of human being. But cause and functions actually is the metaframe, which is to say, it's informative. It's informative of everything, although obviously some things only nominally. So, because everything that anybody ever pays attention to begins with some observer paying attention to something. Every object of analysis, every physical object, every melody, every distant star, etc. Even realities that we imagine that aren't real, we have to observe them first in their imagined state before we can treat them as an object of analysis. Accordingly, all of human consciousness really is expressed as some or another or multiple kinds of attention. Is the heater still on? I'm going to turn it back on. It's pretty chilly out there tonight. Me, I'm the leading authority on it. Yes, I am the leading authority on typology in the entire world. I'm the only person doing it properly, approaching it with the necessary rigor, etc. I would not blame anybody for saying, well, that's obviously nonsense, Eric. That's the correct conclusion to draw if you're using a heuristic to evaluate what I'm saying. And in fact, the vast majority of people who ever encounter typology stuff will be correct in dismissing it as garbage because it's just a cesspool of garbage all around me. So, you know, for the people who are evaluating what I'm saying on its merits, then they're already agreeing with me. But, you know, this is why I don't like to argue about typology. Because at the end of the day, people do not need to engage this subject via, like, they don't they don't need to have any clash here to gain anything. They will not, in fact. The only thing they need is remediation because they understand things wrong. I think critical thing to remember, if you want to make this seem a little more plausible, is that I spent my entire career making cases for both sides of things. I understand how to make a case that withstands scrutiny versus how to make a case that does not. No, I did not mean either of those people, none of those people, and that would not have helped, right? It is true that I was informed by other people's wrong explanations of things that were made before I got here, and that I would not have been able to generate the correct explanation of things if I had not been informed by those wrong explanations of things. That is true. But nevertheless, nobody will ever gain more understanding of things by looking backwards in typology. They won't understand anything by looking forwards either. They will understand things by listening to what I'm saying and understanding that as the correct articulation of things. But I get that a lot of people don't come to typology for correctness, they come for fun. So it makes it a bit of a frustrating topic for me. And also, people have a variety of assumptions, like because Jung came up with the idea that he must be the expert on it. That's very frustrating for me since obviously that's not how the world works. It's like saying that the caveman who came up with the idea of a hammer is the world's foremost expert on hammers. Obviously, his hammer is incredibly shitty by comparison to modern hammers. Yeah, possibly it would, that boy Klaus. Um, and it's possible that somebody could come up with tests that are reliable in identifying polars in the areas where I don't have such tests. I think SE is really hard to come up with a test for because without like you got to either assign somebody some tasks to do or watch how they engage physically with a new thing to them because like when you're SE polar you're SI third, which means you like one time Rachel and I went to a subway in LA and they were training somebody, and the person was clearly SE polar. They had no idea how hard to push down on the sandwich. it was it was insane to watch. Just their clumsiness. But of course, they'll he would get good at that quick enough with SI, right? Yeah, I could roll you some joints, sure. Um, but it's really difficult for me to understand how a test like that um, could be, you know, what's that word? Proctored. And whether or not you could narrow what the results look like down enough that you could require the test taker to not have much intuition about the matter, right? That's a tricky one. FE polar, the test I have is not terrible, but it still is going to require some intuitive understanding of sarcasm, right? Like me asking them to say the same sentence sarcastically and then not sarcastically. Um, that's a pretty good test, and you can definitely see when somebody can't do it, or you certainly can see if somebody obviously can do it, right? The FI polar test is not really a. I mean, you ask people what's important to you, and you can ask them like the kitten or the puppy question. Those are pretty good indications, but those are questions that only work on partial virgins. Virgins being people who don't even know about typology. Partial virgins being they know about typology, but they've not seen any of my assessments. And sluts being people who are familiar with my assessments, right? So the problem with the FI polar test is it doesn't work at all on sluts because it's one of those one trick things like the Milgram experiment, you know. And then what other ones are there? Well, SI polar test I can only really say about a person's SI, and in general, I end up saying this as a kind of accumulation of multiple things. I can say 7 or 8 or something else usually. obviously, if it's 8 and an INFJ, then that's not a problem. I'll be able to nail that down with a TE test. But if it's 8 and an INTJ, well, it's going to be a little more trouble because I don't have as much confidence in my FE polar test. Mostly what I don't have confidence is that I don't I don't know, like, say, how's 8 slot gonna perform on that test? Is it gonna be any better than 7 slot? Are there other slots that might fail that test? Yes. Well, I'm defining this as there's three categories of typing subject, for instance, mom. That is to say, people who know about who don't know about typology at all. They're what you call virgins. And then people who know about typology but haven't seen any of my typing sessions before, they're half virgins. And then people who know about typology and have seen a lot of my typing sessions, they're sluts. See? See how it works? It makes sense when you articulate it out like that. I'm not criticizing them for being sluts. I'm just saying the most robust tests will work even on sluts. So yeah, my SI test, my SI test, best of all, what they are is they're going to tell me front stack or back stack, or 4 5. Like, okay, this person's showing fluency in both. It seems to be usually it'd be like they seem to be NI, but they're able to show effective SI too. Maybe even display it as an absolute value at some point. And I tell you, one area where you get incredibly bad self reporting consistently is SE. If I ask somebody who who's, let's see, say SE Dom or SE Tool, what's your relationship with procrastination? They're as likely as anybody to say, "Oh yeah, I procrastinate a lot." You know. But then when you actually try to dig out what they mean by that, it's a very different kind of thing than when you're talking to somebody who's SE8, SE7. So you really can't trust self-reporting about SE. Although, if somebody's SE polar, SE8, there's a decent chance they'll rattle off a bunch of SI examples. And, you know, I can kind of tell by feel whether, like, okay, yeah, I know this kind of procrastination. This is my kind of procrastination. I mean, that's obviously not a good way to determine things. I mean, it's already definite some of the time now. There are certain types that we can be absolutely definite on using the methods I've articulated and demonstrated in myriad typing sessions. And you can replicate them at home and get the same exact results. We don't have it all, we don't have sufficient things locked down to make process of elimination determinate in every case. But we do have some things locked down sufficiently that we can be determinate about it in some cases. And, that is, of course, exactly what you'd expect to see by somebody doing it right. making sure that things really do link definitively. So, like extrovert intuition polar is very stark, very easy to identify. The line between weak but not polar and polar is not very blurry at all. Pretty cut and dry. NI polar can be quite shocking because you ask somebody to nutshell a sentence that has a lot of extra redundancies and stuff in it, and they just can't do it. They can't distinguish between what are the significant details to leave in, what are the insignificant details to leave out. They end up adding a bunch more details than they need to, and they're really the only slot that does that or that will consistently have trouble with it. I have this beautiful example of NI Polar from an ESFJ recently where I asked him a question about what the single most relevant legal point was on a given situation. And they rattled off just this long list of unrelated legal principles that could conceivably be relevant to any legal case without seeming to even grasp the concept of the question of what's most relevant, what's determinate, right? So the thing is, you can believe whatever you want about it, but the thing is, what I'm saying here, if you were to evaluate on its merits, maybe in conjunction with examples from typing sessions that prove my point, then you would ultimately agree with me that, in fact, not only will it never be definitive, but that it already is, and maybe even more significantly, because it's not always definitive, but is that it's much more definitive and much more rigorous and much more robust than anything else in psychology, vastly more so than Big Five or a bunch of other, you know, arbitrary groupings of things into a pathology of some kind. Stuff that psychology likes to do. Doesn't mean there aren't still challenges. As I faced one last night, I was slow to recognize something that I probably should have been paying more attention to. I'm not going to give away what happened, but we'll see what people have to say about the time says tomorrow. That's an interesting one because that represents a much more challenging example than usually I'll ever get. And part of it has to do with the fact that he's a slut, right? So he knows very much about my typing approach. I am doing type police pullovers. So if you got somebody you think should be type police, let me know. Well, I can type police them. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up now. I want to settle in, watch a little TV, and try to go to bed early tonight. Try to get another good night's sleep because I got to go to work again tomorrow. And tomorrow I'm not going to have an Adderall to take like I did today. So better get as much sleep as I can and be ready to go in the morning. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Winston's mom, for this fantastic hat. I must say it's sharp AF. And I love you all, and I'll see you next time.